I'm not doing anything wrong.
I believe you're already told that you're not allowed to protest out here.
Well,
So they'll be here tomorrow.
Then you know you are committing a crime and deserve to be arrested. Gather your things, you're coming with me.
Well, they arrested me and they took me to jail. And while I was in jail, I wrote a letter to the newspaper. And that letter became an important part of the nonviolent movement for equal rights.
The letter to Birmingham jail. I remember learning about that in school. In the letter, it says that if laws are unfair, you have to be willing to work to change them. He also said this other really great thing.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That means if unfair things are happening in our world, we can't just sit around and wait until they change. We have to be willing to work together to fix them.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I really believe that. When someone was being mean to somebody else, I always like to step in and be their friend. It didn't mean that I had to be mean and get the bully back, but it just showed how important it is for people to stand together and make a difference. And nowhere was this more true on my favorite day in American history, and that was the March on Washington, where over 200,000 people marched up to our nation's capital to fight for equal rights, march, and sing songs.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing on the water. We shall not be moved. I went to the March on Washington to see Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There were people of every kind there, young and old, male and female, black and white. Everyone was there because they believed that every American deserved to have equal rights. But they also really wanted to see Dr. King speak. What we didn't know was that Dr. King would give his most important speech of all time. How many of you have heard of the I Have a Dream speech? Oh, well, you're in luck because you're about to hear some of that speech right now.
As I looked out on the crowd, I was amazed to see how many people came out. It showed just how many people cared about making things fair.
There was a feeling in the air that the problems of injustice could be solved.
I walked up to the podium to deliver a speech. I had something prepared for the occasion, but when I looked out on the crowd, I felt moved to push all of that to the side.
Dr. King told us about his dream for America.
I have a dream that one day, my 4 little children will grow up in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Millions of people tuned in on their TVs and radios to hear as Dr. King spoke of his dream of freedom.
I have a dream that one day, this nation will rise up and live up to its creed, that all men are created equal.
Dr. King went on to tell us that all Americans deserve to be happy, equal, and free.
Let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring on every hill and molehill of Mississippi, on every mountainside. Let freedom ring.
This speech caught the attention of everyone in America. Even President John F. Kennedy was listening, and he met with Dr. King afterwards.
And when we allow freedom to ring, we will be able to join hands and sing that song from that old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
After Dr. King finished speaking, we all gathered to hold hands and sing. We began to sing one of the greatest songs of the whole civil rights movement.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Standing in the nation's capital, I was moved to think about just how long this fight for freedom had been going on. From the Underground Railroad to abolishing slavery, from segregation in schools and buses to the protests in the streets of Montgomery and Birmingham. People had risk life and limb, all so that we could stand together with hope in our hearts.
After the law was passed, the Civil Rights Act, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. began to help other groups of people make their own change.
He continued marching and speaking and writing letters to newspapers. He never sat still.
He was always looking to help people, especially the poor.
In 1968, Dr. King went to Memphis to help some laborers who were protesting the way that they had to work and the little amount of money they were given.
Dr. King was known across America, so when he went to a place called Memphis, people knew they were getting the help they needed.
Unfortunately, not everyone loved Dr. King's message of love and acceptance.
On April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was at a motel with his friends discussing the importance of being nonviolent to help people.
As they were getting ready to leave for dinner, they stepped out on the balcony of their hotel.
A shot rang out, and Dr. King was killed instantly.
Afterwards, at the funeral in Atlanta, a message, a recording of Dr. King was played with this message.
I would like people to be able to say that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did dedicate his life serving others. I want them to be able to say that I did try to feed the hungry. I want them to be able to say that I did try to clothe the naked. I want them to be able to say that I did try to visit those in prison. I want them to be able to say that I did try to love and serve humanity.
And that's what's so great about Dr. King. He truly gave his life to ensure that the world could be better, that America could be better.
Today, we do not want to focus on the sad ending of his life, but the incredible work he did for all of us.
It's because of him that Allie and I can stand here in this library and give this presentation today.
It's because of him that the color of our skin should not mean anything good or bad, and that we can do anything with love and respect for each other.
It's because of this legacy that we decided to celebrate his life and works for our Black History Month celebration.
Dr. King was like all of us who chose to dedicate his life to make America a better place to live.
And hopefully he inspires us
Every one of us.
to make sure that our lives are spent helping others.
Serving our communities and our neighbors.
Because it is then
And only truly then.
that we can say that Dr. King's dream has been fulfilled.
Thank you for joining us today on our report on
The life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.